Today we're doing the second set of notes and we're going to be talking about different forms of polynomials. So the first problem begins in factored form and the directions want you to convert this to standard form. So to do that we are going to multiply my binomials. So some of you chose to FOIL, some of you boxed. Regardless of which method you do, you need to pick two of the three to begin with. So I'm going to start with those two. If you FOIL, you're going to do first, outer, inner, last. If you do the box, you're going to draw a 2x3 box, or 2x2 box, my apologies. So regardless of which method you do, go ahead and multiply. I'm going to just go ahead and do FOIL. So x squared plus 2x plus 1x plus 2. And when I combine them, I get x squared plus 3x plus 2. And now I'm going to bring that third binomial down. For those of you who do the box method, you're going to draw a 2x3 box and your terms are going to go on the outside of the box. So you're going to have an x and a 3 and an x squared, a 3x, and a 2. For those of you who do the foiling method, you are going to you kind of apply the same principles. So you'll do x squared times the first and x squared times the second. And when you do that, you'll get x third plus 3x squared. Then you're going to do your middle too. And again, the box people, you'll have the same terms. So my middle one, 3x times x will be another 3x squared. And I'm just going to stack it underneath its like term. 3x times 3 will be 9x. And again, my boxers, you'll have the same thing. And now the last, I'm taking the 2 to both of those. So 2 times the x is 2x. And again, I'm just going to kind of stack all my like terms near each other. And 2 times 3 gives me the 6. And again, we just kind of combine like terms. So we add straight down. So that'll be x cubed plus 6x squared plus 11x plus 6. And my boxers, you're going to notice those same like terms will be on the diagonal. So I have taken this factored equation and converted it to standard form. So now we're going to go the other direction. Now the directions say write it in factored form. So right now we're in standard form. We want to convert this to factored form. So the first thing I look at it and I have three terms, I notice that I have a GCF of 2x. So we're going to pull the 2x out. And when I do that, I am left with x squared plus 5x plus 6. And now we're going to take a moment and do some old school factoring. So the whole a times c thing. So 1 times 6 is 6. And I need to find two numbers that multiply to be 6 and add to be 5. So our combination will be 3 and 2. We're just going to pretend that this 2x that's out on the front just isn't there for right now. And we'll bring it back into play later on. So we're just going to simply pretend that that's not there. So if you do the box method, go ahead and draw your 2x2 box and put your terms on the inside. If you group, you're going to put the group 4 terms of x squared plus 3x plus 2x and plus 6. Again, my boxer, those are the 4 terms in your box. The first set I could take out an x, and I'm left with x plus 3. And the second one I could take out a 2, so I'm left with x plus 3. So this will be factored to be x plus 2 and an x plus 3. And now that 2x from the very beginning, we're just going to put out front. And we've taken the equation that was in standard form and converted it to factored form. Again, it's really important that you read the directions. So this problem looks almost identical to the top part of the page, but now the directions say find the zeros or x-intercepts. So we want to leave it in factored form, and instead I just set each binomial equal to 0, and I solve each one individually. So we will get 3 answers for this problem. So this first one will give me a positive 2 because I would add 2 to both sides. The second one will give me x equals negative 1. And the third one would give me x equals negative 3. Obviously, you don't have to write any of that out. you can do that in your head if you feel comfortable. The last one we're going to work backwards. So now the directions say write the equation in standard form with the given zeros. So basically they're giving you the three answers. They want you to write the equation. So if the answer is -2, that means it came from an x plus 2. Then I have a +3, which means it came from an x minus 3. And then I have an x, which means it just came from an x. Common thing students will say is x plus 0, but x plus 0 would just be x. So you're now going to FOIL or box with those two right there. If you do the box method, you're going to put them on the outside. So I'll do the box this time just to kind of switch it up. FOILers, that's how you'll kind of connect them. And now you find the inside. So I'll have x squared, I'll have 2x, I'll have -3x, and I'll have a -6. When I combine like terms, I'm left with x squared minus x minus 6. And this x that is kind of hanging out back here is just going to get distributed in. So we're still going to distribute even though it's on the back end of things, but I still would distribute it in. Works the same. And I get x cubed minus x squared minus 6x. So I just took the equation that was in given the answers, I wrote it in factored form to begin with. So this is your factored form, and now I'm in standard form. So the last thing, again, we're going to kind of just talk about today is just making sure that you understand the different forms and that everything's tied together. So this form right here is your standard form. So if you want to label that, that's your standard form. And this one over here is your factored form. And remember, different forms show you different things, and then they also gave you the graph. So this is your graph of f of x. So the graph says, what are your zeros? So the easiest form to look at would be your factored form to figure out your zeros. So when I look at that, my 3 zeros would be -1, -2, -3. But you could also very easily look at the graph to obtain your zeros. When I look at my graph, it's crossing at -3, -2, and -1. So that's another way to identify that your zeros are -1, -2, or -3. Your y-intercept, you can either look at the graph. So my y-intercept would be right there at +6. The other way to determine your y-intercept is to look at standard form. So remember, way back when in the quadratics chapter, your y-intercept is always your constant value. Well, that still holds true here. So in standard form, the value without the x would represent your y-intercept. And then the directions say to solve. Well, I already know the answers. I don't have to really solve the equation. I can just know that in factored form, those are my 3 answers. I could look at the graph to obtain those 3 answers. So as long as you have access to a calculator to look at the graph and that they're nice whole numbers, you can always use the graph, or you could look at factored form. So you have several practice problems to try on the page. Make sure you input the answers as you go.